Welcome in, everyone, to Spiritual Roots Podcast with me, Misty, where we talk about life, the magical, mundane, and everything in between. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Today, I have the pleasure of having on the show Julie Mudd. Julie's journey into intuitive healing began with a quest for self-discovery and growth. She dedicated her life to guiding others on spiritual paths through coaching and mentorship. And a quote from Julie, empowering your spiritual journey means guiding you to unlock your potential, embrace your intuition, and discover the transformative power within yourself. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming on, and welcome in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love the invite. Thanks.
Yes, you're welcome. Is there anything you would like to bring up before we get into questions? I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, no, I love that I'm here. I love that you decided to have me. I'm making my way through the city, so getting my way into podcasts has been an absolute gift. So thank you for helping me on your own platform, and I appreciate the time spent. But I know that I wanted to just kind of connect to the idea. So if anybody is looking for something incredibly fun to do, the upcoming final Friday of every month through October, there is an incredible city pop-up event that's going on Hanover Street. And I have a pop-up tent in there. And Friday was so fantastic. I can't tell you how many people I read for, but I left the evening with still 4 or 5 people on my waiting list. So that said, I would love to invite more people to come down. It's the last Friday of every month, all the way through October. We were blessed with beautiful weather on Friday, but I do have a pop-up tent, so we're safe from rain or the elements should anything occur coming forward. But yeah, so I'm making my way. I'm making my way.
And this is
through.
in Manchester.
Right in Manchester, New Hampshire. Yep. Again,
right?
I was propped right. Yep. Propped right between the Mocha Pot, where I do my tarot readings on Thursdays. That's sort of my residency. The Mocha Pot is 8 Hanover Street. Then I'm across the way on Tuesdays at the Bookery, Manchester on Elm Street. That's Tuesdays. I'm doing pop-up tarot there. And then Saturdays, you always find me at the Terracotta Room doing readings in there. Monthly, we do a gallery reading in there as well. They're much more intimate than any of the bigger galleries that we've done recently. So that's coming up on August 13th. We've got an intimate gallery reading going on at the Terracotta Room, which is 1361 Elm Street.
Perfect. That's quite the trifecta. Yeah. I love the Bookery. Such a cute little bookstore.
Yes.
I love it. I actually work right up the street from there, so I'm familiar with Elm.
Well, good. So you should pop in. I expect to see you on a Tuesday or a Thursday.
I definitely should.
Yeah.
Yes,
definitely.
Absolutely. What times are you there again? On a Tuesday and a Thursday?
I'm there from 10 to 3. 10 to 3 all those days.
Okay, got you. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to tell my little origin story of how I found out about you, Miss Julie.
Please.
I went to her first gallery reading, public gallery reading, correct? It was your first one?
First in a theater that was big like that. Yeah.
Yes, theater. Okay,
yes.
The first big one. And I went with 2 of my friends, and it was amazing. And Julie's set was so ethereal. It was beautiful. The whole thing was just beautiful. There were plants. I loved how you talked about and you had the visuals of home in the back. That made me cry. I just thought that was beautiful when you spoke about your best friend. But let's get started with this, because you are a medium and you are getting out there more into these bigger deals, it sounds like. So can you, from your perspective, let's go about like how you were feeling in that first big theater gallery reading.
Well, interestingly enough, I'll take you back to the origin story of how that whole event happened. I intentionally keep my gallery readings, or I have for the last 5 years, kept them intimate. And the point being, I had been to my own gallery readings, right? I'd been to mediumship readings in my own life, and kind of almost get distracted in willing my loved ones to come through. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say leave any event disappointed, but leave a little wishing there was more of a connection for me personally. And so when I decided to take my mediumship as a true message, as my purpose, I took a different perspective from it completely. So I really wanted people to get their piece. I wanted people to receive in my galleries. I wanted people to really feel their own intimate connection, their own direct message from their own loved one. And so the idea of big gallery readings sort of didn't really appeal to my methodology. And so I've spent, like
Mm-hmm.
I said, the past 5 years working at the Terracotta Room doing our intimate 12 to 15. I think one night I took in 20 people on October, and it was like, we were there until like 11:30. It got too long.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, because again, the point was everybody gets a piece. So that's
Yeah.
the intention, is that the event is centered and really designed around each of the individuals that are there taking the time. So, um, I continued my tarot readings on the weekends at the Terracotta Room, and would do any events that they had going on there. And so there was a small business Saturday, and it was kind of a back to back, sort of a revolving door all day long with readings. And at one point, this lovely lady came in, sat down, said, I'm your 1245. And then three women came in behind her. And I was like, oh, oh, I have such a tight schedule today. Were we planning for
Oh.
all four of you? And she said, no, but I have an hour. Could I split up my hour with them? And I was like, sure, of course you could. Absolutely. And, I usually ask my clients within a tarot reading if they're comfortable with me bringing source or spirit energy in, if there's loved ones that may be kind of hanging on the peripheral. And if they're not, that's no problem. Tarot can read on and of itself. But it's always a beautiful addition when our loved ones feel so compelled. So as I started the reading with these loved ones, these four girls, I had to kind of slice and dice it pretty quickly and kind of get through that. And I made, that one cry and this one cry. And the woman who booked the session with me said, I've known them each for 25 years. I've seen her cry once, and I've never seen her cry. So what did you do? And it was not crying in sadness, but more in catharsis, or more in healing and peace, right? These
Yeah.
weren't tears of sadness. These were tears of uh, um, release, tears of enlightenment, of acknowledgement of love lost, or love shared, So at the end of that reading, she said, okay, great. So I'd like to have you at the Rex Theater. And I was like, huh? And she's like, I'm Katie. I book the events for the Rex Theater. I'd love to have you at the Rex for a big gallery. And I was like, all right. Well, I don't really, I do, small. I do intimate for people to really get what she's like. No, you have to do it. And I was like, I don't really, do that. And she worked me down. It was about a year of her working on me. And whenever I'd see her, I set up at the Mocha Pot, and she would be like, oh, you guys, that's Julie Mudd. Go talk to Julie Mudd. You need to get a reading from her, and then tell her we should have her at the Rex Theater. And so I would have these different people that would pop in for readings, and they would say, have you ever considered being at the Rex Theater? And I was like, oh, I see what we're doing here. I see what we're doing. So after a long battle, they won. I don't know if it was my fear, of not being able to give people what they really deserved. but I just kind of put it in the back seat. And was like, well, I know my loved ones. I know my spirit guides. I know the archangels are there ready. So they're like, what are you afraid of? And I was like, well, I don't know how many people. They're like, yeah, we got it. Like, it's the same process every time, in terms of my team and my guides and the way we kind of engage before an event. So it's just a trust. It's a deep trust. I remember doing like the trust fall in middle school on those like outward style events, and thinking there's no way these eighth graders are going to catch me. And so it felt really similar to that, just kind of believing and trusting and knowing that what's for me really doesn't miss me. And so when it lands and it lands and it lands and it lands, you kind of go like, okay, let's give it a shot. So, yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
I'm glad you listened because it really was a magical evening. One of my coworkers also joined in, and she brought her friend, and it was just a great time. And my experience, what was funny is, for the audience, for my listeners, Julie came out and she listed off these spirits that had come to her prior to this event even starting, and I absolutely loved that because you already had connection, and I thought that was so cool and so amazing that you wrote them down and just put out the names. And what was funny is my uncle passed away, 5 years ago now, maybe even more than that, but his name was George, and Julie immediately came out on stage and was like, I'm going to say these names, and if it connects, great. That's just paraphrasing her own words, sorry. And you said, George died of cancer, and you put your hand on your stomach. And I was like, holy shit. And I turned to my friends, and later on, as you had gone through, other people that had come through, and you kept going back to this list, and you had brought up George again, and I was like, I have to put my hand up for this. And you brought him through so authentically, it wasn't even funny. It was so uncanny because you were like, he's a big energy, and my Uncle George was, I'm just going to talk about him for a minute because he was like a stud. He, back in the day, was like a bodybuilder, and he was total like Arnold Schwarzenegger idol. It was hilarious. His hair was perfect. I just called him Sexy George. And when you were talking about him and like how he just loved his family and he was like a big energy, you totally nailed it on the head. And the way that he passed, you got it. It was, he had that for a very long time, and it just eventually, it just came to be. But I just wanted you to know that because now I have you in front of me and we're chatting, and I just wanted to say my experience. And I just thought it was wild that you had that come through because then you just hit on so much after that. And I was like, this is validation. It's totally my uncle. And
amazing. Thank you. Thank you for all that validation, Misty.
Thank you.
And I will say one of the drawbacks, which is why I'm so thankful to have Alexis Clark and Nicole Rocha from the Terracotta Room, my little coven, I call them, because they're usually, they're so present in my gallery readings. They were the ones who initially kind of said, like, let's do it here. And I was like, I don't know if, I've been a medium. 2014 was sort of my activation window, if you will. I had experienced a handful of really traumatic events that kind of culminated to that real thin space of the veil, and authentic questions from my soul that I was seeking answers to in the midst of that trauma, and heard from my dad. And I was like, oh, great. Hearing from my dead father. So this is super. I should go get medicated and talk to all the people that will hear me and make sure no one locks me up. And, for a large chunk of time, I spent that revelatory time really, understanding what it was, right? Really taking the time to feel it, I'm 48 years old. A lot of the women that kind of grew up in my window of time, maybe were not always honored in terms of their authenticity. I was told for years that I talk too much and I'm too sensitive. And I was like, so as it were, that's a superpower, right? That's my superpower today.
Yeah.
So I think it's in learning and trusting our authentic selves to really, I don't want to say award. I want to say, uncover the gifts and the talents and the abilities that we don't recognize that we have until they're needed. And I truly believe that's the case in the instance of my connection, because I know I'm not the only medium. I'm unique because I'm unique and you're unique and we only have one of each of us, but I'm not rare. And I believe that most of my methodology in the work that I do is in teaching people how they themselves connect to their loved ones. So it doesn't become the greatest kept secret, and it's not being gate kept, and it's not because everyone has the ability. Everybody can connect to their loved ones. And part of this is about us deprogramming a lot of what we've been taught, not just in mainstream media, but in schooling, right? In the general kind of idea of performance and expected performance and expectations, right? So there was a certain idea in creating similar individuals, right? And because when do we also notice similar individuals? When they're lined up in an army, right? And so creating an army of non-conscious, and this is not meant in judgment or defeat or anything like that, but it was something that I noticed for myself, and that I had spent so long trying to be something that somebody might value that I completely shut down my own self, my own authentic self. And I think that we do that again because of programming, right? Organized religion, don't come at me, but I like to say that organized religion is more of energy harvesting location. Strike me down if you. I'm a recovering Irish Catholic. Like, I was raised in the Catholic religion, and I think there's a really important, integral journey from there to here. And I think when we note that there's this certain commonality to the way we like people to be, we kind of go like, oh, wait, what? Why? Why do you want me to be like Dick, Mary, and Jane? Why not just Julie, right? What is inherently too powerful within identity and authenticity that they had to manage it, right? And I don't mean my parents or my organizations per se. I mean the organizations, the powers, the we, the them, the they, right? The 9 out of 10 dentists, I don't know, whoever they are that we have continued to allow sort of lead our lives, right? And so there's this inherent demand as the frequency of the earth is increasing and the frequency of humanity is increasing. It's leveling out that really low frequency funnel, right, of shame or guilt or like those pieces that have allowed us to be inauthentic to self.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. All of that. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yes.
So the faster we come into body.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Right? The faster we come into body, mind, body, spirit, the faster we get to truly be our highest self.
I love every word of that. Absolutely. And that's what you help folks with as a metaphysical life coach, and I love that. How did you get into being a life coach? Like, what started that for you? We've covered your mediumship, love it. Oh my gosh, so much.
Yeah.
How did you be like, okay, now I want to help people tune into themselves?
Honestly, it started many, many, many moons ago when my firstborn, who's now 19, um, came earthside for me. I had had a handful of miscarriages before him, and so my
Oh.
picture of what motherhood might look like had some stumbling blocks along the way. So when it came really down to me being an embodied mother, right, with a child here earthside, it became
Mm-hmm.
my only desire, my only focus, my only intention. And at the time, I was the general manager of a Lane Bryant in the Concord Mall, and at the time, the major breadwinner in the family. So I had been in that position for just under the required period of time, like literally 3 weeks shy of being granted family medical leave. So I was told after I
Oh.
finally had this little earth angel in my arms to come on back to work after 3 weeks. And it just wasn't going to happen for me. But at the same time, I was holding the insurance for the family. There was a lot of pieces of the puzzle that I couldn't just be
Yeah.
like, okay, go, you know? So I made my
Right.
way to one of the new mom support groups down in the basement of CMC. And there was this hippy dippy lady with a long suede skirt, and she was knitting hats. And she said to me, don't worry about that job. And I was like, I'm sorry. She said, well, I'm doing this thing. I'm creating this thing, and I think you might actually be perfect for it. And I was like, okay, hippie lady knitting hats in your suede skirt. Here's my number. Call me, if this is a real thing. And she called me 2 days later, and I was like, oh, you were serious. So I was at the foundation of starting a beautiful maternal wellness center called Nini Bambini in Bedford. And so I started the mission to a certified childbirth educator. I became a certified lactation counselor, certified PPD, so postpartum depression peer counselor. Um, I got certified in belly dance for birth. I taught mommy groups and play groups and all these kind of really beautiful connected community experiences. And within that kind of umbrella, the owner kind of took the time for us to get certified as life coaches. So that started. And
Yeah.
then I took it a step further and became a parent coach. So I had all these little pieces of the puzzle and uh, a really great community to kind of feed into. And then, pardon me, the business, my dad got sick. The original thought was that we would buy the business, um, as she didn't have loved ones that wanted to take over for it. But then my dad got sick with prostate cancer. And I think as we were really invested in what was happening in my family, I missed some signs, I guess, at work, and the business was sold when my dad was sick. 51% shares was sold, and there was new management. And, I was basically told, they're coming here for you, and that's not the business model. And, we're going to have to let you go. And I was like, what? What?
Oh.
So I failed to mention at the same time I was coming out, my husband and I were separating, going through a
Okay.
divorce.
Yeah.
My dad was sick, and
Oh
we were
my
taking
gosh.
time with my mom to go down to Dana-Farber Cancer Center in Boston, to partake and help and be family. That's what we did. Um, and so I lost my job, my career, my lifeblood, right? That one true thing that brought me joy. And nonetheless, 29 days after that, I lost my
Yeah.
dad. And then the following day, I found my husband passed from an accidental overdose, which was 11 days before our divorce was finalized. So it was a really, that night, then my best friend dropped me off and I never saw her again. So it was a tricky. I mean, that would be,
Wow.
minimizing that experience. But that was when all those pieces of that puzzle had to come into play. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy experience. I was very gifted in the idea that my mom, though double-edged sword, we were both experiencing such similar and such different juxtaposed grief. So
Yeah.
I turned my garage. I started to, plaster and wall off and tape and paint, and turned my garage into a small, studio where I could host. I started an LLC, which was Baby Joy by Julie. And so I continued to host my little play groups. I continued to teach belly dance. And I had a beautiful, they called it, I think it was hashtag Julie's Army. They started a GoFundMe, and they fed my business for years and years and years. And I like to think that now I recognize, as we're watching, the patriarchy fall, and there's this definite feminine collective uprising that's happening, or it should be happening, right? And I have full body goosebumps, so I know Spirit's like, run with this. I know I've I've been teaching and leading and growing the matriarchal power for a long time. Because the matriarchy is not women in charge. It's women and vulnerable at the center, right? At the core, where we allow things to be manufactured as nature allows, right? If we look at every other entity, nearly, mammals, bees, the queen, right? They hold the queen at the highest regard, and that's because, frankly, we keep the home. We wash the clothes, we make the food, we keep, my mom always said she was the sap that held the bark on the tree. And I'd like to take that a bit further, but that sap ultimately becomes the syrup, right? So it's the true gift of what that mentality is, really. And so I think there's a retracing of the true matriarchal lineage that's saying, oh, we're empowered now. Oh, you guys have been telling us we were crones. It turns out post 45, we're in our power. And now we don't give any fucks, Yeah. So now you can't hold anything against me, because I'm comfortable with me, right? So it becomes, now we're redefining how and who leads from here.
Yes. Oh my God. Julie, what a journey. So you having your son just opened up this whole door for you. So him just coming into your life and coming earthside, as you say, just really like opened up a fucking portal for you.
Correct.
To just be you and your authentic self, and just be this entity of stewardship for people. And I love that so much. Wow.
Wow, that's such a beautiful way to say it. Thank you, Misty.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
It's, I'm just taking a second, because that is a lot in such a beautiful way. Wow. And now do you speak with women, or do you work with men as well? Like,
no, everybody. Yeah, gender is not
what's your calling now?
Yeah. Well, so I will say that since my wife and I have been together, we had our little boy. So we've got 3 boys now. 3 boys run this household with us, 19, 16, and 2.5. Max, Leo, and Hank. And they are the center of our little universe over here. There's no doubt about it. But in January, I had been really kind of stumbling in the work that I was in. I was in as functioning as a parent coach within the homeless community. And I'd been in that for about 4 years, and the empath in me was like, well, that's what we're supposed to do. The empathic soul leads the stewardship, into wholeness or authenticity. And I had spent years in different nonprofits where we had learned trauma-informed care, where there was a real deep desire to see, in particular, young families try and find a path outside of trauma. And I don't know that the standard outfit that does that, right? They don't work through they can do the bridge, the gaps. We can get you into a place, but we can't provide you the opportunity to keep the place, which is working through the trauma, right? So that was my role, was a parent coach working with, young parents aged 17 to 24, whether they had just the night previous had their 6-week-old baby in a tent, or were literally sleeping in their car for months on end. So these folks got moved into apartments, which is already way bigger than anything they've ever experienced, way more than they've ever experienced, and they get me, but not a lot more. And so we still were up against the powers that be with the state assistance and things of that nature. And so there was almost this funnel of watching people not really get out of the space they had sort of come from, because the root of that was trauma. And so we were band-aiding the symptoms of the trauma, but not finding our way back to the root cause. And it's that root cause that needs relief and release and enlightenment so that we can move forward. Otherwise, we've been conditioned in victimhood, right? It's our responsibility to stay a victim, because in victimhood it elicits a certain response from people, right? And so until I'm done, requiring that elicited response, I'm not comfortable not owning that space that I'm in, right? And so I think the faster we decide that people deserve that, and we work towards that instead of creating these little band-aids that don't do a whole lot to the scar, right? And so I think that's where I had been saying to kind of the universe, I had been working within the scope of, I work with a really beautiful book, and I was working with one of my very favorite clients who today, I'm her PCA, which in that environment is primary caring adult. So she's 25 now, and she's pregnant with her third. Her husband is back home, and things are looking really, really healthy. But she'll be in my life forever. She'll be in my life as long as she continues to choose to be in my life, and her children and her husband. And, my wife knows that they'll be at holidays, and they'll be at, these are the kind of things that I received out of that, and for me, watching her evolve has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. At the same time, there wasn't enough balance of survivors who wanted to really thrive to the victims. And that victim mentality as an empath gets really heavy, and so there was only so many DHS phone calls I could make. There was only so many babies in diapers that I could see overnight that, I eventually said, I can't do this job. And I was saying to the universe, hey, this is a soul-sucking job. I don't think I can do it anymore. But I would keep doing it. And I would say to the universe, this is sucking my soul. I don't want to. But I would keep doing it. And so in October, I thought I was treating a wart. I've never had a wart before, but I had this bump on my foot. I go to the doctor, and they said, well, you're going to go to the foot doctor. And the foot doctor said, oh, we need to do surgery because it's your foot and that. Okay, great. Well, one of my very favorite authors, speakers, just in general, is Louise Hay. She is the author of Heal Your Body, and she assimilates our spiritual blocks, issues, connections to our physiological ailment. And so when you look up the right foot having surgery, it's fear of moving forward, right? Fear of stepping into the future, what the future might look like. And that very client, that's still today, one of my kiddos, she says to me, years ago when we were in the process, I was like, I don't want you to tell about a job I don't want you to think about a job you want. I want to think about the way you want to feel in your job. Right. And so this is from Danielle Laporte's book, The Desire Map, which is a guide to creating goals with soul. Right. So I wanted these people to feel something. What do you want to feel when you're working? And so this beautiful girl says to me, okay, Miss Julie, what do you want to feel when you're working? What do you want to be when you grow up? Because this isn't your authentic job. And I said, I think I want to do my soul work full time. I think I want to do my tarot work and my mediumship full time. And she was like, so do it. And I was like, Miss Thang, that we're talking about you right now. And so that was approximately 18 months before surgery happened. have my surgery. I'm out for 7 weeks, and then I get an infection in my surgery site, and then I'm out for 3 more weeks. Then I get released from PT. I go back to work, and I slip down the stairs at one of our units that wasn't well maintained, and I hurt my back.
Oh.
And I was out for 3 more weeks on workman's comp. And then, honestly, Misty, I was on my way, released from PT, going back to work, no boot, ready to go. And I heard I don't hear normally. I don't hear the universe. I don't hear spirit. There's a clear audience. There's a knowing, clairsentience, right? And I could hear it. It said, it's going to look like a bus. And I said, so what?
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 Oh, no.
It's going to look like a bus. So I called my wife, and she's like, why are you calling me? And I was like, well, I don't know if I can go to work. Why? I said, I think I'm going to get hit by a bus. She said, what? I said, I don't know. If I go to work, I'm going to get hit by a bus. So I think I have to quit my job.
Holy shit.
She goes, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
What, the hit by the bus, thank God, or the thank God I want to quit my job part?
Right.
Yeah. So I said, well, what am I going to do?
You don't need a signier sign than that.
What am I going to do, though, right? I don't want to get hit by a bus, but what am I going to do full time? I've been looking for a job. And she said, you're going to read. And I was like, I read on Saturday. She said, so do it full time. I was like, I read full time. She's like, yes, do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And that was it. We said, like, if in 6 months, which was January to June, if in 6 months you're not booked or you're not feeling like, then we, look for a job again and let's see what it looks like at that point. And then you're disconnected enough from this job and then you see where you're at. And I think it was probably 3 months in and I had secured the Rex Theater. And I was like, okay,
wow,
maybe it's going to be a real thing. So, I mean, I think I've established enough following in the community. I like to think I'm a community builder. I'm a community collaborator anyway. And so watching the community thrive is where I win. So, more people believing themselves over not believing themselves is where I win. Really, where I win.
Absolutely, and you can tell by your prior work, prior to what you do now, you were building things, you were creating things already. So clearly this is your jam. Like, this is what you're meant to be doing. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Wow.
I will say in the background, separate of this,
it's beautiful.
My wife and I have built a nonprofit, a family and maternal wellness center called The Garden. And that's what we are sort of working on, getting it legs and a foundation as we move into 27. So The Garden Family and Maternal Wellness Center, designed to be exactly that, a community space, but in nonprofit format. Because unfortunately, Nini Bambini at the time was sort of had an elevated kind of membership sensibility to it. And so the kids that I worked with over the last 4 years would never have access to that type of community or knowledge. And so it's there. Actually, I wrote the business plan probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then when we had Hank, I was in the shower. We were like 10 days after he was born. And I kind of had this moment of like an aha epiphany moment. And I was like, is this a nonprofit? And I had not heard from my husband at all. And that was 10 years, nearly to the day of his birthday, to say,
wow,
hey, you were always right? You've always led with your heart, and your heart is always right. So, 1, I'm sorry. 2, you were right. 3, it's definitely a nonprofit. And he said to think, if you didn't trust you, there wouldn't have been a Hank. And I was like, yeah. But it took him 10 years to get to me. Yeah.
It was divine timing, Julie. It was at the
Yes.
exact right moment, as
Exactly
I
right.
believe.
Exactly right.
What? So you mentioned some books. I would love to bring that up because
Yes.
I love learning. I love to hear about, I want things on my list. Let's get into some books if you don't mind. What were some like heavy hitters for you? For maybe that influenced your work that you do, or just maybe led you down a different path you never expected.
Yeah, for sure. One of the first ones I think that opened me up to the idea of processing more than what I could see tangibly was The Secret. The Secret by Rhonda
Yeah.
Byrne. She, the idea being the gift of manifestation, right? And understanding at its core what manifestation really was, which doesn't get finished in that book, right? But it shows up in the next book, which is the magic. And so the magic is about the frequency of love, really. It's about reminding ourselves that magic shows up in the instances where we are loved, loving, or experiencing and exchanging love. That's when we're at our highest. That's the highest frequency we can ascend to. That's it. So the elements that we have been conditioned by, shame, guilt, fear, right? Fear is a huge one. What are we actually afraid of?
Yes.
Them, right? Those 9 out of 10 dentists that have told us, what they recommend.
Yep.
God, what are they going to do if I don't stay the course, become one of the army? What will they do? How will I be received? Right. And so I like to remind my clients that fear is false evidence appearing real. Right. So if we write it on a vertical, we get to see fear as false evidence appearing real. Right. And so that allows us to kind of redistribute the fear a little bit and say, like, okay, wait, let me take it to its logical outsource. What is this thing that's keeping me? Okay, well, I've experienced these patterns before, and we are humans, so we see patterns. Pattern. Previous pattern was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, here comes anxiety. I just created anxiety.
Yes.
Out of a previous pattern versus trusting those butterflies or that excitement in here was maybe my chance to imagine. If I can picture how shitty it can be, I certainly can imagine the highest, right? And there's a large
Yes.
A large collection of our society that's been taught for many, many moons that we expect the worst. And if we expect the worst, we land amongst the it's okay, right? But today in 26, we're like, well, mindfulness says where the mind goes, the energy flows. So here we've been expecting the worst and hoping for a different outcome. Great. Super. Cheers. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
oh my God.
Those were some that started some
you
of
nailed
that
it. Absolutely.
religious reconditioning, I think, for me, And I don't know that everybody experiences religious trauma, but I think it certainly is a place that, kind of percolates or stimulates some of that spiritual sense. That's like, is this all in a book and just it's outside of me? God's source energy is outside of my body, my heart, my soul. I can't reconcile with that. Where I know you're God, Misty, I'm God. This plant here, God, like it's God, like it's oneness, it's wholeness, it's everything, and it's nothing, right? So this idea that we have created this visual image of a man that is the God. Oh, y'all have created some fictitious shit. That's all I know. And as I teach this really beautiful workshop, Who I Am, it's an identity workshop. I remember many moons ago teaching it to a highly religious fellow. It was a group setting. He was one of, I think, 15 in the group. This is a 12-week course, right? So these people are getting to know one another, and they're really wildly comfortable with one another at this point. And I said something about the voice in your head, and who the loudest voice is. And I said, I like to believe that the loudest voice in my head is me. And this man raised his hand and he said, well, I want to disagree because the loudest head in my voice is the voice of God. And I said, Jeff, that's your voice. And he said, no, it's God. And I said, Jeff, you are God. And he was like, oh, He bristled at the idea of me inflecting this theory onto him because he can only function in the
Yeah.
ideal of God. He himself could never equate to God. I said, do you believe that in your church they taught you that God was perfect? Never. And when I asked Spirit,
Right.
asked Source Energy, how am I designed? Am I designed for perfection? Absolutely never. You're designed for reflection. You're designed to show.
Yes.
So I believe that we've been misguided. I believe that there was a space and a time for organized religion. I really do. I don't think that we've always been misguided. I think there was a time and place of
Right.
authentic faith. And I think it's been misdirected. So it's things like this book
Agreed.
that takes you back, right? Takes you into the space of believing who you are, the alchemist, right? This happens to be the 25th anniversary, but yeah, another great book.
That's
another great book.
It's my friend Kristen's ultimate favorite book. She adores that book. She brings it up all the time. So that's so funny that you bring that up. Well, I guess
Yes,
it's not
it's
funny,
a good
but
one.
You know what I mean. It's
synchronistic.
Like she gives it away as gifts. Yes.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that she'll be pleased when she listens. She'll be like, yes. She's amazing.
So this is Katie Benway's book.
I love that. Yep.
Ignite Your Intrepid Soul. And as you can see, this one gets used and abused in my life. This is that kind of book. It's like marred and gross and syrupy and like all the things. But it's one of those handbooks to life, right? That you were never really given. And then the probably my big guy that also is page worthy and ribbled and describbled and all of the other things is the desire map. And the desire map is this is workbook format, and it's a really great workbook. But it's the guide to creating goals with soul, right? So it's not, we're redistributing and redefining what success means, because I think what we've been taught for a long time is a very static form of success and a very static form of abundance, and a very static form of gratitude. And I think that that's really becoming much more free-flowing. I think it's becoming much more pliable. I think that we recognize that everything we've known to be true is not true. So might as well go ahead and believe in the unseen.
Absolutely. Yes.
Just saying.
You said it. No, you're so right. I think that when we open up to our truest selves and allow ourselves to be open and honest and, work with books like that and really apply them to our lives, we just open up and, like you said, be a reflector, similar to with Jeff here. You're reflecting back to him. And I wanted to pedal back just a little bit when you were being reflected upon by your client, right? Mm-hmm. And it gave you the nudge to be like, oh, shit, you're right. Okay. And it affected your body. And going back to that again, as we were having our conversation, going back to the body keeps the score with have you ever read that book? Yeah.
Yes.
It's a beautiful book.
Yes.
When we get to the root of things, I guess is where I'm going, then that's when we can really open up and, like you say, just say, you know what I was taught is not accurate, and I'm going to be authentic to me and move forward. And that's when we all light up. We light you up. We light the next person up. We light the next person up, because now we have that light that's emanating from ourselves. Does that make sense? I kind of went on a ramble.
Of course. There. Oh, absolutely. It's contagious. It's contagious. It's as contagious as a yawn. And I like to say in my galleries, it's as contagious as skepticism. Skepticism is contagious. Yes. It's a contagion. And it's fear-rooted, right? It again says, I know the outcome of this. And I tell all my clients, I'm like, do you have a crystal ball? Because if anyone should, it should be me. I should be like access point 1 for crystal ball, and I don't have one. So if anybody else has a crystal ball and they can see into the future, please let me know what the lottery ticket numbers are. I don't have that skill. Right. And I like to think that when we trust that the skills, the talents, and the abilities that we have show up when we need them, it changes everything versus being conditioned to believe you're just terrible at this one thing. And you're like, what if that's not my thing? What if that's just not the thing I'm supposed to be good at in this lifetime?
Right.
And I'm
Yes,
supposed
exactly.
to take that as a reroute.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it's these questions that keep coming up for us that I think we need to unpack more and say, why am I feeling triggered by this? Why does going to work on Monday make me feel so triggered? What is it?
Yeah. Right. Get to the root, which is very difficult to do. And it can be
100%
soul-wrenching at times.
Very much so. Very much so.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're doing beautiful work, Julie. I love all of this so much. I just have a couple of less questions.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on it because you had mentioned, the passing of your husband. What were some unexpected obstacles? You started this journey. What was unexpected for you that kind of popped up?
So 2 things in particular. One, I like to think that nobody can be the best at anything. So having one best friend seems just too much to put on a person. So I have a lot of bests, right? A lot of best friends that are different, that highlight different best parts of who I am, right? And so I've had losses of best friends. And one was my spiritual mentor, young man. I met him. I was definitely in my late 30s, and he was a teen. And probably damn near the oldest person I'd ever met in my entire life. He happened to be a volunteer at the nonprofit I was working for at the time, and just taking seconds of time to pick his brain. Like, he was mind-blowing. Medium, spiritual, just he knew things, he could share things, he could teach things. I mean, as a 17-year-old man, like it just was kind of that mind-blowing experience. And he was regularly at psychic fairs, and people knew who he was, and he was just kind of astounding to me. And I remember having him here for a work event one day, and he was sharing his medium work, and I was like, I would love to have you connect with my dad. And he was like, well, let me try. And he was like, oh, so no. And I was like, oh, no. And he's like, no, your dad, dad's a little brash. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, why? He said, well, your dad made it very clear that, like, we don't need you. She's a medium. We don't need you. So, and I was like, oh, what?
Okay.
Really? He's like, oh, yeah. And so this was a handful of months after my dad had passed and everything was going on, and I'm a medium, hey? And he's like, yeah, you're definitely, he's not going to talk to me. And so it was a matter of him really helping me cultivate and learn what in-body meant, and learn what connecting on a cellular level meant. And he was just an absolute gift. And he passed away 10 days before he was supposed to meet Hank at 23 years old. And when he passed, I felt it. We were in the car. And I grabbed my wife by the arm, because I felt like my chest was cracking open, like something was wrong with me physically, and it felt like my chest was breaking. And I was like, something's wrong. And I looked down on my phone was ringing, and I looked down, and his aunt was calling me. And I knew in that second what was happening. And then he was with me. And he takes me to, and there was one point in the show where I brought you to his prismatic hallway.
Yes.
And he brought me to that space with this beautiful red carpet and these VIP ropes and this gorgeous door at the end. And he turned and looked at me and he said, I'm VIP, babe. And I was like, I know you are. Go. I mean, I have full body goosebumps right now. I mean, he just is my most thorough, knowledgeable connection to spirit and source energy. Not expected.
Wow.
I was not expecting him to pass. I was always expecting him to be nearly 20 years younger than me, to always be that bright energy that could keep me moving. And when I felt redirected, what do I do? And before he passed, actually, I had another best friend. My wife and I used to go on date nights with this couple. And one night, as we were leaving, I hugged him. And when we got in the car, I looked at my wife and started crying. And I said, something's wrong with Jeff. And she's like, what? What do you mean? I was like, I don't know, but I know something's wrong with him. And I was making me cry. It was very clearly something was wrong. And within 3 weeks, we had found out he was diagnosed with a sarcoma cancer. And nearly 3 weeks after that, he passed. But in that 3-week window of time, I started a GoFundMe. I like to do comedy shows, so I would invite my friends up from Boston, and I'd put a bunch of comedians on stage, and we'd try and sell tickets and make money. And so I filled up their GoFundMe, and we had this beautiful event, and he passed the day before the fucking event. And so what was supposed to have been a benefit comedy show ended up being a terrible opportunity to share that my best friend had passed overnight. And the day that he passed, that day before, he woke up, had not been real clear or cognizant, and had woke up and looked at his wife and said, I need Julie to come get the kids. So she called and said, will you come grab the kids? I said, of course. We live four doors down. I went down and grabbed the kids. I hugged Jeff and I said, I love you. I will take care of your family. I just need you to rest your body now, and you be at peace. And by the time we hit the road, he had passed. So he's with me all the time. But 2 years after his passing, his wife wanted to come for a reading, which was beautiful, and I loved it. It was incredible. And my depth of my love for Jeffrey, unfortunately, left me kind of like a little open cellular space that was like, hey, embody me. And so when I'm here at my house, they're like breaking bread. We're like it's at the kitchen table. And so he was originally kind of seated next to her, and sort of his energy sort of inches his way, almost like he would be looking over my shoulder as I'm writing things down. And you saw during the gallery, I intuitive write a lot. So there's a lot of writing that happens for me. And it's almost like he was double checking what I wrote, like making sure it was right, and then I went blank and he sat down in my soul.
Oh, wow.
And so that's channeling, and that's not anything I will ever partake in again. Did he just
take over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And if my wife was not here with a migraine that day and it had come down midway through this reading, I don't know if I ever could have believed Nikki and her telling me the story that this happened. But my wife said, all of a sudden your voice changed. You were speaking really quickly. And I turned around to see you like, what's that fucking voice? And she said, your whole body was trembling as you're speaking and writing furiously, writing numbers like $17,680, who to sell it to, who to call on it. Like, I mean, and I could feel myself like a pinhole, like a tiny minutia, and dark and desperate and like really uncomfortable feelings. And my dad is my spiritual bouncer. And so it's as if someone came and gave you like a side hug. He like, whoop, side hugged Jeffrey right out of me. And it was like someone dumped 10 gallons of white paint over me and covered me with relief and release and peace and love and like the antithesis of what I had been feeling. And I like, my wife said everything went like there was this stasis. My voice went back to normal. I went totally calm and placid. Nikki, Jeffrey's wife, was like, my wife was like, are you okay? I'm up crying, calling Ethan. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened. Something just happened. I don't know what happened. And he's like, girl, you just channeled Jeff. Jeff just sat down in your soul because you love him.
Holy shit. Yeah.
I was like, I don't ever want to have that happen again, please. No, I'm not that girl. I can't do that. I don't want that.
Right.
Tell me all your words.
Do you
Shit,
set that
spell it
boundary
in my
now?
ear. But please don't get in my body again. I don't like that at all. And there are people that channel. There's someone called Bashar, and he channels, and I cannot do that. I cannot do that. Not that I cannot, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
That's not my
that's
strong
fair.
suit.
That's your boundary.
Yeah, boundary
you're like, no,
in
thank you.
place. Yep, never again. So, and I did make that very clear with my spiritual team. I was like, hello, let's not do that again. No. And even Jeffrey was like, hey, so I'm really sorry. And I was like, yeah, bro, I don't care how much I love you. Never again. It was like, I don't play. Homie, don't play that. It was not for me. And, yeah, I'll never do that again. There's a very clear boundary around me now. I don't allow that. I'm not for that. That's not my modality.
Yeah. Lesson learned.
No, not for me.
Gotta shut yourself off in some sort of way and hold that boundary when you're doing
The boundaries
readings.
are important. They need to know it.
Yeah.
Our boundaries with spirit are as important as our boundaries on earth. Like, boundaries establish respect. Boundaries allow you to enjoy. Boundaries allow you to be safe. Boundaries are something that in organized religion we're not taught is a very healthy thing, right? They're your family, or what about the loyalty, or you've known them so long, or like, I don't care. I don't give a shit. If you're hurting me, you're done. You're out.
Right.
Short.
Yes.
It's simple.
100%, period,
Yeah.
and stop.
That's it.
Well, that segues into my last question, because I know we had planned out an hour. I don't want to hold you up too long, but I do want to ask this question. If you were to give any advice to someone that's looking to go deeper into their practice, what would be your top tip? Or 5?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, separate of my shameless self-promotion of being a medium mentor, and I think that, I don't, as a mentor, I do not help you engage spirit. Like, you would come to me already connecting with spirit, but more learning how to manage that connection. But I think probably the top piece is learning how to hear yourself. Learning how to trust yourself. There's 5 really important components to, I think, maybe this work, but maybe just in general. And it's the 5 real true emotions of life. And it's self-trust. When I trust myself, I can breed love in me. When I have love for myself, I can make a commitment to myself. When I'm committed to myself, I feel motivated. So there's self-motivation. And as soon as that motivation hits and I feel myself, there's a sense of identity and a sense of self that shows up. And that's our authentic self. And I always think that we need to remind ourselves, we don't maintain relationships in our life that we don't trust the people. And so if we are not trusting here, how can I love completely here? And then how am I allowed to share my love at its highest capacity with others if I don't love myself at the highest capacity? And again, not because we don't love ourselves, but we've been conditioned to believe that self-love is egotistical or it's self-centered. But I would remind everyone of what happens on an airplane when you're traveling with your loved ones. If you don't take care of you first, the cabin depressurizes in 58 seconds. Does that give you enough time to take care of everyone else too?
Right. Good point. Oh,
Yeah.
Julie, I've loved this so much.
Me too, Misty.
Thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having
This was
me.
really exciting. Yeah, I
Me
look
too.
forward
I loved
to
it.
To your next gallery. I'm so grateful. Thank you for that. So, real quick before I let you go, let's get your socials. Where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can always find my personal social, which is always linked to my metaphysical social, which is Julie_Mud_Pie. Julie Mud Pie. And then my other connection is to the Metaphysical Life Coach. So that is me on Instagram as the Metaphysical Life Coach. Facebook, I'm Julie Ann. I think I'm got to be public at this point. And then you can always find me at themetaphysicallifecoach.com. So that's my website.
Perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
much again. I can't wait.
Pleasure.
I can't wait for
My
this
pleasure.
to go out. Oh my gosh.
I know.
can't wait for your next gallery.
Yeah. So 813 is the next one locally, and then we try and get it on the books. I do have a couple of local orgs that are looking to do some private galleries. So that's the other thing that I do is you're always welcome to hire me for private parties. The last one I did just at the end of July was a really beautiful family event. So there was about 8 folks. So I take about 8 in a private gallery at a home. But then it kind of keeps the really specific folks maybe right there too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. It's so healing. I just have to leave it on this note. Mediumship is such a healing modality.
It is.
Really
It definitely is. The peace that I can offer it's like nothing I've ever experienced before.
Yeah, it's magic in itself. Well, thank you again, Julie.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, take care.
All right, Misty. Be well.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye.
Thanks for coming along for the ride, travelers. If you're enjoying the show, please share, like, or leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you have ideas for the show or would like to say hello, you can email me at spiritualroutespodcast@gmail.com. Please keep sharing the show so we can keep finding our spiritual roots together.